Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
And welcome back to the Prepped and Polished podcast. This is your host, Alexis Avila of Prepped and Polished. Be sure to join our community. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram. Just type Prepped and Polished and you will find us. And for more information, check out preppedandpolished.com and sign up for our free monthly newsletter. If you have a question or reaction during or after this podcast, email radio@preppedandpolished.com. Today, on episode 132, we're talking to Dr. Karina Dusenbury of Maximize College. Karina runs Maximize College, an online resource that helps parents equip their students to make smarter choices about majors and careers. Karina holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from University of Missouri, a master's degree in college student development from University of Iowa, and a doctoral degree in higher education administration from North Carolina State University. On today's episode, Karina gives us advice on how to maximize your college years so you thrive during college and after college. You're going to get tons of tips, and she's going to help you get through college. So let's get right to our guest. This is episode number 132 with Dr. Karina Dusenbury. Dr. Karina Dusenbury, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Great. So could you start off by sharing with the audience a little bit of your background, focusing on some key pivotal moments that led you to where you are today, really as an advisor and counselor for college-age students?
Absolutely. So I spent 15 years of my career working on college and university campuses. And so I wore a number of hats. I've worked as a career counselor. I've worked in academic advising. I have created leadership programs and professional development programs for students. And I did that for 15 years and have now moved out using what I've learned. And I'm working with parents and high school students. And one of the primary motivators for doing that was seeing what happens once students get into college and how they move through. There's a lot of emphasis as students are planning for college to focus on the SAT and their grade point average, all of which are really important. But I saw a lot of students get in and not graduate in 4 years like they expected, and get toward graduation and find they weren't as positioned for getting hired as they wanted. So what I want to do, and kind of my flavor of career planning, is helping people consider some of these issues beforehand so that while they're working on getting into college, they're also focusing on the things they can do as high school students to be better poised to graduate on time and to get that job that they're going to college ultimately to get.
Awesome. Really amazing service. So can you tell us about your website and online community, which is Maximize College, and how you help families refocus their college planning efforts so students can get more with their time and money?
Sure. So at this point, Maximize College, and it's just maximizecollege.com. The first primary resource that families can tap into is my blog. And I write about major selection, career decision making, basic elements of planning and professional development. What I am also transitioning from is I previously worked one-on-one with clients locally, but I love the idea of being able to reach out to families anywhere and make that kind of assistance more affordable and more convenient. So what's in the works for Maximize College and is being piloted for summer of 2016 is an online coaching community. And this is a resource that parents can use to get information about helping their students find college fit and just kind of navigating some of the basics. And then within that community, there are also courses for students. So one of them that I'm working on right now is this career decision-making course. What are the steps of that, and what exactly do you need to do so that when you come out of the course, you're pretty confident about what you're going to be doing out of college?
Love it. That's amazing. So you often talk about obstacles students face once they get into college. So, and you have a wonderful presentation, with 5 obstacles. And I was wondering if you could share some of these obstacles, some of the solutions you provide to overcome them. So, for example, like obstacle 1, you mentioned indecision about major is a major obstacle. Can you elaborate, please?
Absolutely. So a number of students come into college knowing they're undecided. And believe it or not, sometimes those students are at an advantage because they're going in really ready to search. Other students go in with an idea of what they want to do, and sometimes they're really ready to hit the ground running, and other times they're not. So really, being undecided about a career can happen whether you think you know what you're doing or whether you think you know it, if you think you know what you're doing and if you don't know what you're doing. So one of the things I really encourage students to do while they're in high school is begin this process of learning about themselves. That involves getting to know your skills, your interests, and your values, and then bumping up that information that you've gotten and looking at careers that connect with that. One of the things I think students underutilize and really is a key to making a good decision is getting out and meeting with professionals in the workplace. I previously worked in a college of engineering, and a lot of students chose that major because they were good at math or they had heard that it was a fairly lucrative career. But as they got in and learned a little bit more about what engineers did, there was a reasonable proportion of those students who changed their mind. And that's something they could have learned about while they were in high school if they had taken advantage of informational interviews, which is going out and meeting with people and actually asking them questions about their job, or going on a job shadow. And that's where you actually are observing people in the workplace. So I think one of the great ways to overcome that obstacle of not being decided is to get out there, learn about yourself, explore your options, and then dig deeper by actually meeting people who are living the life you think you want to live after graduation.
That's amazing. And then obstacle 2, you mentioned unclear degree requirements. How is that different?
Absolutely. So once you get into college, you are going to get what some schools call as an academic program or their program of study. And what it is it's a list of classes you need over the course of 4 years to graduate. Sometimes
right.
It's very clear what you're supposed to take. In majors that are very technical, they tell you the exact course. In other majors, you're choosing from electives, and at times the descriptions of those electives can be a little bit confusing. So if students are trying to navigate their degrees on their own without seeking out advising, they can get into trouble. It can also be an issue if advisors aren't readily available,
right.
Or advisors just don't know the ins and outs of programs well. So when students are looking for colleges, I highly recommend that they get out there and find out who would be serving as their advisor, what kind of experience do they have, and how can I know I'm going to be getting the most accurate information from these individuals. And second, once you're on campus, you've got to use that advisor. As a former academic advisor, I know that some students don't take the time to schedule those advising appointments, which really can lead to issues later on. So definitely when it comes time to register, I recommend setting an appointment with an advisor. Go with what you're planning to do and an explanation of why, so that you can see if you're following those degree requirements accurately.
Wow, that's amazing. Great tips. Obstacle 3, you mentioned an obstacle students face is earning too few credit hours.
Sure. So students, when they go into college, typically need to take 15 credit hours per semester. That equals 120 credits over 4 years to earn a degree. Some degree programs may require more hours, but typically 120 is that minimum if you're at a school that's on the traditional semester system. what can happen, and there are reasons why this is recommended, but some institutions will try to ease freshmen into their first year and encourage them to take 12 credit hours. That still allows a student to keep their financial aid, but it supposedly helps them ease into the transition from high school into college. If students stay on that track too long, or they don't make plans about how they're going to make up those hours, that's how students can easily get off track, and a 4-year program can become a 4.5-year program. The government actually measures graduation rates in 6 years. So there are students who, because of various obstacles they're hitting that we're talking about, are taking that much longer to graduate. So this is a simple one. If students are figuring out, I need about 30 hours within a 12-month period to graduate, am I going to get those by taking them 15 in the fall and 15 in the spring? Am I going to take summer courses? Just come up with a game plan about how you're going to get those hours in, and that is going to help a student stay on track.
Wow, okay. And then obstacle 4, you mentioned course availability. What does that mean?
So this is an obstacle that students don't always think they're going to run into, and it's issue that I really recommend that families ask questions about when they are looking at colleges. Now, course availability can fall into 2 categories. One of them is whether or not a course is open. So a course may be offered, but if they don't have enough seats for all the students who need it to take it in a certain semester, that can be a problem. Course availability can also have to do with whether a course is available every semester or whether it's available in the fall only or spring only. So where students can run into hitches with this is if a student wants to graduate in the spring and they need a class that is fall only, that is a problem. They're not necessarily going to be able to finish that degree on time because of that requirement. This is a particularly challenging issue when students change majors or when they transfer institutions, because if there are fall only and spring only classes that are part of a sequence, which means that you need Intro to Biology 101 before you take the 102 course, or fall only and spring only, if you enter this school in the spring, you may have done everything you needed to do as a transfer student to be eligible for that course, but you are now behind because the school isn't offering it when you need it. So do research about how frequently classes are offered in a program. Be sure that you are asking questions about what departments do if a required class is closed. Now, the one caveat I'll put on all of this is you need to be doing your job as a student. If you aren't registering on time or if you have failed a course, it is difficult for an institution to meet all of your needs. But if you're doing everything that you're supposed to, you want to make sure the courses are available when you need them.
And I'm sure that overlaps just a tad with your last obstacle, which is developing and maintaining motivation. What do you mean by that?
Sure. So college is a marathon. You know, getting through in each and every one of those years requires a lot of determination. And what I have found is I've helped students through that transition from high school into college is that sometimes what it took to be successful in high school is not the same set of skills that it takes to be successful once you're in college. And some students are surprised to find that if high school came really easy, sometimes college is harder for them than it is for a student who really had to work their way through high school. And the reason for that is there are study skills that students who worked hard in high school had to master and time management skills. So going in, you need to be ready to make sure you're building the different skills you're going to need to move through. That's a piece of motivation. I also think that being sure that you are ready and committed to starting your degree now is important. There are a number of students that now are figuring out that they may not be ready to jump into a 4-year degree immediately. And so doing something like a gap year, which is taking a year off to maybe do a formal program where they're exploring themselves or they're going out and doing service, is really good to help them be focused and know why they're going into college later on. I specifically talk to parents about this, not to pressure a student that's not ready to go on into school yet. Be sure that you're communicating with your student. If you're a student, that you're communicating with your parents to try to make sure you're starting in at the right time. All of us are hearing about how expensive college is and what college debt is and how it's growing. You want to go in ready to do that program in 4 years with a specific end goal in mind so that you're getting the most for the money and the time that you're investing.
Wow. All right. So just pretend like I'm a aspiring college student and I want help. How do I go to maximizecollege.com and what should I look out for there?
Sure. So a student that's looking for basic help would get a lot out of the articles. And so when you go down to the main page for Maximize College, our sidebar or our top scroll bar has made it really easy. If you think you want to learn a little bit more about majors, you can click that major selection button. If you think you're ready to think about careers, you can do that. A number of the articles are written from the parent perspective because oftentimes I've had parents initiate discussions for students, but everything in there is for a mixed audience. So students and parents can get a lot out of that. And then if students are wanting to do any of the e-courses that we're creating, they should be up and running for fall of 2016. They ought to go in and learn a little bit more about our online coaching community. There is a for that as well, which is a way to virtually go through a course online. I think it's great for students who maybe are in a public school where they don't have regular access to their guidance counselor to have these kinds of discussions. I work with a number of homeschool families where they are not currently connected with a counselor. So really anyone who's in any of those boats who wants some additional support and more personalized support could get a lot out of the experience.
Terrific. And how can we best get in touch with you?
Sure. So maximizecollege.com has all my general information, but I wanted to give listeners to your podcast an opportunity to get access to these obstacles that we talked about and a little bit more detail about what to do and questions to ask. So if you go to maximizecollege.com/prepped, so PREPPED, you can sign up and get a copy. It's a 7 or 8 page document that walks through all of these obstacles and how people can work through them.
Thank you very much. That's going to be really helpful. So now teenage years is an exciting time, a lot going on, but it can be overwhelming. And, they're really looking up to you today. So I was wondering if you have any words of wisdom before you cross that bridge from, teenagehood to young adulthood. You are going to have all of your life to have lots of responsibilities and a lot on your plate. So while I do encourage students to think about the end game, what career do they want and where they're going with college, I also don't want students to get stressed out about that. So I think you need to take your time in high school to explore as much as you can, learn as much about yourself as you can, and realize that when we're talking about making these decisions about your future, all you're doing at this point is you're choosing your starting place. Yeah.
You may be seeing your parents changing careers. You see people out there doing new things with their life. There are always going to be opportunities to do something new. But what you want to do is make a wise choice about where you're starting so that you are walking into something intentionally versus just floating along and kind of being taken by the current. So have fun, but be intentional.
Oh, perfect. Love that. Karina, thanks so much for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Hope you can come back one day. Appreciate your time.
I've enjoyed this.
Terrific. Thank you. And this wraps up our show today. This was episode 132 with Dr. Karina Dusenbury of Maximize College. To connect with Karina, check out her site. It's maximizecollege.com. And to access her gift to Prepped and Polished listeners. Go to maximize.com/prepped, maximizecollege.com/prepped to receive her amazing comprehensive article about the 5 obstacles college students face. So I hope you enjoyed episode 132 with Dr. Karina Dusenbury of Maximize College. For another related conversation, definitely check out episode number 82. It was my interview with Joan Casey on how to thrive once you get into college. So another related conversation, that was episode 82. So tune in to hear our next podcast episode. It will be 133. It will be our next tutoring tips episode. And to access today's episode, 132, and all of our episodes, head over to preppedandpolished.com/podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.